I'm Clark Green with the Elite Angler Academy, where I teach anglers how to utilize technology and resources to find and catch more fish. I want to welcome you all to my channel here. Hopefully y'all subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you can be alerted anytime I post something new. But this video is my after practice report for the MLF Pro Tour event on Sam Rayburn this week. We've got 2 days of practice. Yesterday it was really rainy, but I covered a lot of water, graphed a lot. In fact, probably 98% of my day I spent sitting there driving the Skeeter around, looking at the Lowrance units, trying to find what the shad were doing, what the fish were doing. I did a lot of scouting here prior to this event going off limits. And you think, well, what do you mean? You guide out here, you spend a lot of time out here. Well, I spent a lot of time, in the weeks prior to it going off limits, looking for new stuff, whether it be hard spots or isolated logs. I went and found everywhere where the grass was at, marking a lot of isolated clumps and everything else, and figuring out what depth ranges shad were using at the time, and just trying to figure out, what the behaviors, what they were doing, what stages the fish were in December and early January. Excuse me. But all of that plays into having a limited practice time. I didn't have to run around and start graphing new areas. I didn't have to go out and sit down on an outside edge, say like the Black Forest or over at Bird Island or the canyons, and start just graphing, looking for the right stuff. And hopefully that's something that y'all can take away from my example here, because by doing that sort of work prior to any sort of tournament, that stuff is always going to be there, whether it be stumps or logs. If you were to go out right now and graph for grass, that's going to be there through February, early March. Since there isn't a whole lot on the lake, you'd be able to go find all that stuff if you figure out how it lays out and everything. And so because I did all that work prior to the lake going off limits, I was able to actually fast track my practice period, because in reality, I'm looking more for patterns, but I have multiple places on the lake found where I can run patterns, whether I'm deep or shallow or whatever else. And so today, I basically expanded upon what I learned yesterday, and moved up the lake further. Yesterday I covered kind of from the Black Forest down to the dam. Today, I went kind of from the upper end of the Black Forest, Mud Creek, Julie area, over to Harvey's Hum, to all the way above the bridge. And I even made it all the way up the river at one point in time, just trying different patterns. And, I'm trying, I mentioned it yesterday, I'm trying to fish as loose as possible without having preconceived notions about what the fish should be doing, because in reality, it's like they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing at the end of January. Fish definitely aren't where they were at in December. This time last year, fish aren't where they were this time last year either. And, a lot of guys have asked me, why is that? And the only thing I can attribute that to is it was hot for so long. It's almost like we're 3 weeks to a month behind right now, water temp wise. Like it's 54 right now. It really hasn't dipped down further than that. Obviously it's other places on the lake, it might be cooler than that. But we went from having like the warmest winter to this point that I've ever seen here. I mean, we were wearing shorts in January quite a few days, even out on the water. But because it hadn't gotten cold, fish didn't start moving to position where they should be in January. And the weights that they had last week at the Bass Champs looked good. There was a few big ones that started showing up that a month ago it wasn't. Those fish really weren't there. It didn't seem like. But that factor right there is, are those big ones going to start pulling up? Are they going to start pulling up more towards the end of the week? That's to be seen. But I found multiple patterns this week, whether it be deep or shallow or mid-range, because there's kind of 3 different ranges here you're going to fish, that I could run at numerous places. And by being able to do that, it's going to enable me to combat the amount of boat traffic, whether it's, all the tournaments that are on Saturday, if I make it to Saturday, If an area is crowded with our anglers, I'll be able to move out of the way, or I've got little isolated deals. Or if I see too many boats in the area, I can move on to something else. So say I'm running grass in that 4 to 6 foot range. I know where all the grass clumps are on this lake right now, or the concentrated areas of grass. I know how the drains lay out in those areas with grass. On the mid-range there, a lot of what I'm fishing is hard spots and wood and things of that nature. And so I know where all that sort of stuff is throughout the lake, and I'm able to move around freely, due to the traffic. But also on Friday, it looks like the wind is going to blow 10 to 15 on day 2 of our tournament out of the northwest. And if any of y'all ever actually been on Rayburn, you know that any wind that's cold in that 10 to 15 is probably going to gust to 20, and it's going to get gnarly coming down the pipe. And so by having these different patterns, I'm able to run those, say, I can kind of bebop around in some of these places that I might not have checked in practice, just because they set the scenario up for what I'm looking for with that offshore pattern. I probably won't do a whole lot of bank beating on the main lake here. But at the same time, it still boils down to getting bites, because it's a numbers game out here. You still need to get one random big bite every day to boost your bag up above 14, 15 pounds. And a big one out here, realistically, is a 5-pounder. A 4 or 5 pound fish is going to go a long ways towards getting somebody to Saturday for sure. But by having these options, I've got to decide, okay, do I run isolated fish like on brush or a hard spot or an isolated rock or a stump? Or do I try and go shallow and chase individual fish around grass clumps? Or do I go out deep, which are more of your winter fish that are based off of shad, and go catch those? And I'm going to catch those on the traditional stuff, whether it be a tail spinner, a drop shot, a Ned rig, Carolina rig, jig and spoon. But I've got all that stuff rigged up in the box, but I'm hoping to not have to go after those fish if I can catch a quality fish. That way I'm not forced to sit there and go weed through those trying to build a bag up. But I've always got that in my back pocket. And so I spent a lot of time, today actually looking for those. And a lot of guys are complaining that it's tricky offshore right now. They're not really finding them. And the fish are actually doing something that they did last year. When was that? Late November, December, when I first got an active target. If you go back and watch some of those videos that I did, you can actually see the way these fish were behaving. And it's real tricky, but the problem is they're in such acute spots that if you don't go over the exact spot that they get, you could be 10 yards off, you're not going to see them on your side imaging. You almost have to go directly above these fish to see them. And again, that's one of the luxuries I have, that whenever the fish were biting great in November and December and we were catching 100 a day, I was able to go out and find more of these places these fish are going to use. And so I've got those ready to go for this tournament. By knowing where they get when things are right, they're kind of in those same exact spots at this point for this event. So hopefully I'll be able to pull up and land on those and bang out about 14 plus pounds a day to make the final day cut for Sunday. So, after I got off the water today, I relined all the rods I needed to reline. Tomorrow I'll tie on baits. I've got some work to do tomorrow. The water's low right now. I beat up a prop pretty good. I'm going to go see Russell Sparks here in Lufkin tomorrow, and he's going to bang on the prop a little bit for me just to get it in fighting shape. I wouldn't feel any vibration, so it's still going to be fine, but you might as well have everything in tip-top shape. And then I may have to run up to Jones trolling motor up in Texarkana and have them do a little work on my trolling motor right now. I've got some vibration going on. I got a prop not seating right. I changed out props, and I don't know if I've got a bent pin or whatever else, but I know those guys are going to help me out and get me on the water. So I'm Clark Green with the Elite Angler Academy. This is the after practice report for the MLF Pro Tour event at Sam Rayburn. And stay tuned. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to do a video more on fantasy picks. I've talked to a bunch of pros. We've shot some video compilations. I know fantasy fishing is ramping back up, and I've asked a bunch of pros to give me their top 5 picks for who they think will benefit your fantasy team. Maybe not so much who's going to win, but who do you think is going to help pick on your fantasy team so you can win some of those prizes and stuff that MLF and Bally's is putting out. So I'm Clark Green with the Elite Angler Academy, and we'll see you tomorrow.